Welcome to the Stillhouse Reflections, a quiet space to step outside the noise and consider what's real, what's yours, and what freedom can mean in everyday life. Hey folks, it's Della. Welcome to the Stillhouse Reflections. I'm glad you could join me today. Um, so I want to start by just sort of introducing the podcast, giving an idea of how this format is going to work. This is not going to be a running weekly podcast. I'm recording 8 episodes, and we'll put those out one per week over the next 8 weeks. And then there will be a break in the podcast. It will stop for a couple of months, and then it will come back with another set of 8 episodes. Um, all of the seasons will have a theme. They'll all go together. Everything will make sense. But this way, it allows me to continue my writing and do other things and not just become kind of a podcaster, which is my goal. So uh, to talk and write, not just do one or the other. So what I want to start with today for this first episode is actually to revisit a live event I just did, which was called The Truth About Responsibility. And I talked about in that event, I talked about the idea, the difference between responsibility and obligation, and how society has, in a large way, it's conflated responsibility and obligation to mean the same thing. If you take on something and become responsible for something, society tries to obligate you to that thing so that you're never allowed to leave again. It tries to hold you in that space instead of giving you the freedom to decide, you know what, I don't want to be responsible for this thing anymore. So what I wanted you to understand in that live was that obligation is mostly manufactured by the system. The system creates obligation to keep you in things because it's afraid of what happens if it gives you a sort of easy out. It's afraid of what happens if it doesn't tell you legally that you have to stay in that marriage for 100 years, then you'll get divorced. You see how well that works. It tells you that if you are legally responsible for your children, so it obligates you to your children. And if you try to leave your children, something bad's going to happen. You see how well that works. The obligation is manufactured. It's created by the system through laws and rules and perceptions of how things are supposed to be. But then the punishments, the things that are supposed to keep you in the obligations, don't actually hold people there. It doesn't actually work. Divorce rates are still at 50%. It the system doesn't actually hold you, isn't able to hold you really the way it wants to. So the obligation is completely manufactured by the system. Everything that you do, including working, is completely manufactured by the system because there is nothing there except that it holds survival over your head. So because it's holding survival over your head, it automatically makes survival is being held up here. It's hold over your head, right? It's being held. You have no choice but to work. It's manufactured obligation because there's zero reason why you should have to struggle to survive in an abundant world that we live in, like we live in. There's no reason for you to struggle to survive. So the obligation is 100% manufactured by a system that creates lack in order to make you think you have to struggle because that's how we do things. The whole thing is made up. It's invented. It's invented. This is important to understand in the world that we live in today. It's getting harder. Making ends meet, surviving is getting more difficult. It's getting more challenging to feed yourself, to keep a roof over your head, to do all the things that you normally do. The system is actually making it harder intentionally to get you to work harder. The reason for that is capitalism. Capitalism perpetuates the work to survive mentality. Capitalism relies on that to keep itself running. Again, it's totally manufactured, it's made up. And as we move forward in time now, and capitalism, what we call it late stage capitalism, is eventually going to explode. It's going to implode. It's just going to collapse in on itself because it can't be sustained. There aren't going to be enough workers. There aren't going to be enough jobs. The prices are going to be so incredibly high. Wages aren't going to keep up. The whole thing's just going to collapse. Eventually, everybody will be in poverty, except for the very top few. And people will just starve and die. It doesn't matter whether it's a democracy, a dictatorship, whether it's fascist, whether what it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's communist. It doesn't matter. Systems that have capitalism as an underlying foundation break. Period. They break. Because capitalism snowballs. Snowballs. And the wealth keeps getting pushed to the top few. And because wealth is treated as pie, because wealth is treated as something that is finite, that only a few can have, because people are scared that if they have, they're taking away from somebody else, right? That eat your dinner, or there's a poor kid in Africa that starves because you're not eating, which is totally a lie, by the way. That whole mentality to make you feel guilty for having, we've gotten into a society now where when you get on here and you talk on social media or you do anything, you have to apologize for your privilege. You have to apologize for what you have. We literally make people feel guilty for having anything these days. Not just having wealth. We don't make Trump apologize for having wealth. We don't make Bezos apologize for having wealth. But we make individual people like you and I apologize for having what we have. I'm supposed to come on here and apologize because I'm able to be home and do this. But that's manufactured. It's made up. It's designed to make you feel guilty. If you feel guilty for having, then you won't accumulate. And if you don't accumulate, that means that at least in their imaginary world, somebody else can have it. It's more that can go to the top of the list. If you don't have it, who takes it? Bezos? Zuckerberg? That's where it goes. But you're made to feel like it's your fault that somebody else doesn't have. You're made to apologize for your privilege, for your ability to put food on the table and have a nice house, have a job you actually like, those kinds of things. You were made to apologize for that. And you shouldn't be apologizing for that. That kind of structure creates manufactured obligation because what's it obligating you to? It's obligating you into a life of poverty because it's making you feel bad for having anything else. So you're being obligated into a life of poverty. You're being obligated into sacrificing for somebody else. Because we pretend that there's a shortage. All the time, we pretend that there's a shortage. And there is no shortage. There is no lack. None. There's no lack. The earth is completely abundant. There is no lack. But we pretend there's a shortage in order to keep people struggling. That is the definition of manufactured obligation. If we pretend there's a shortage and force you to work in a job you don't like that doesn't pay you very well, we can manufacture obligation. And that's what it looks like. And why does that matter? Because as systems collapse, as this whole thing falls in on itself, life is going to get really hard. And you're going to have to figure out how to be okay in that while the world's rocking and rolling. And we're already there, really. You're struggling. You have to figure out how to balance yourself without needing the outside world to necessarily be stable, because the outside world isn't stable. So you have to figure out how to be okay anyway. And that's really hard to do. That's really hard to do. So what we need to understand is that our sense of well-being and security is within. It's not out here in the world. The world is chaos and noise. And if you look for a place to anchor yourself in that, you're going to have a problem. It's going to be very hard to do. But if you can find a way to anchor yourself within yourself and be okay in here, then you don't need to worry so much about what's happening out there. You can be okay. And it's hard to pull back. You've been taught so strongly to pay attention to everything that's going on out there. Everything has an external focus. Everything. But that's not true. Between the manufactured obligation that life creates and then this constant focus on what's going on around you, you have no anchor within you. You don't even pay attention to your own existence. You've got a pile of problems in the corner, just like we all do, but you're focused on them because you get taught to pay attention to your problems all the time, like they're going to jump out at you. None of that is true. If you turned the focus on yourself and stopped paying attention to all the thousands of problems and all the things and all the stuff going on around you, all the drama-rama, and connected to yourself, you would instantly calm down. You would instantly feel better. Instantly. That's really all it takes. Manufactured obligation or not, find time to focus on self. So that you can find peace in here, because that's where it is. Chaos out here is just going to be what it is. It's always going to be there. You're never going to get rid of that. You don't have control. Right? Manufactured obligation is a form of control. So you get obligated into focusing on things that have nothing to do with you because you've been told that if you don't, you're a bad human being, which is wrong. It's a lie. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're not doing anything wrong by focusing on yourself. When you pay attention to yourself, you give yourself the freedom to find the truth in what's actually happening, to realize that the system is lying to you constantly. There is no lack. You do not have to fight for survival. In 2025, nobody should be fighting for survival. Money is not finite, ever. If money was finite, then halfway through the year, every single bank would shut down. we would run out of money every single year. Every single year, the entire system would run out of money and simply shut down. The banks would stop. You would be told that we have every penny we have is in circulation right now. We have no more. That is the end. That's what you would be told. And that is a lie. Money is continually generated. The banks never shut down. The bank has never turned to somebody and said, I'm sorry, you can't be a millionaire today because we don't have the funds. None of those things have ever, ever, ever happened. And they never will. Not in a capitalist society. The idea of that being finite is a lie. It tricks you into believing you have to take from somebody else in order for you to have. It focuses you on yelling at Bezos to give his money back, instead of realizing that there's enough still left for everybody to have what they want. You're too busy being mad at the top 1% because you think they're taking all the pie, but they're not, because it's not finite to begin with. But it's easier to be mad at Bezos than try to figure out how to improve your own life. And that's the manufactured obligation, by the way, because it manufactured an obligation that made you fight with the top 1%. It obligated you into a fight you don't even need to have. The top 1% can be bajillionaires, and everybody else can have $1 million in their bank account, and guess what? Nothing's going to happen. Absolutely nothing will happen. You want to know why? Do you want to know why money isn't finite? Because it's electronic. Because we're long past a day where the only money in circulation was printed money. It is true that there is a finite amount of printed money out there, whether it's coins or bills. There is a finite amount of printed money. If everybody tried to go to the bank and take all of their money out in cash, yes, we would have a shortage. That is absolutely true. But for as long as money is on a computer screen and it is simply electronic, there is far more electronic money available in the system than there is printed money available. We do not have a one-for-one match. So they keep telling you that money is finite. Well, what they mean is that cash, bills are finite. Cash and coins are finite. Computers don't have a finite number of zeros. Electronically, we could put $1 million in everybody's bank account, and the system would be no worse for wear. Because there's no lack. The computer isn't lacking zeros. There's no lack. It's a lie. And that lie creates manufactured obligation. It forces you into struggling to survive. It forces you into working when you shouldn't have to, because there is no lack. You have the ability to have the food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, and education that you need 100%. You have it. The system doesn't allow you to have it, but you have it. And guess who controls the system? You and me. If we actually wanted it to change, and we weren't so scared of what if, and we weren't so busy blaming people for being lazy or blaming Bezos for being rich, guess what? We could change it. If we weren't so busy blaming Trump, if we weren't so busy blaming everybody for everything, if we weren't so busy fighting amongst ourselves, guess what? We could change it. But we don't. Why don't we change it? Because we're scared. We're scared of what happens if. We're scared of what happens if we don't make people work. As I said in my live, the only reason people want 2 6 months vacation every year is because they're overworked, stressed, anxious, Scared? You're in fight or flight constantly. No wonder you want 2 6-month vacations a year. So when you give everybody a break and you let their nervous systems calm down, as long as they don't end up with PTSD, eventually they will go find something to do because they'll get bored otherwise. When you give people the opportunity to actually lead fulfilling lives they like, it changes the conversation. Will people struggle? Yeah, maybe. But it won't be people that'll struggle. It'll be businesses that will struggle to fill those jobs. To fill those jobs that are hard to fill those jobs nobody wants. Because you have to incentivize, you have to find ways to encourage people to take those jobs. They have to pay more. They have to offer fancy vacation packages, right? If healthcare is free, then they don't need to provide you healthcare, so benefits aren't really a conversation, at least not benefits as we know them. So now the benefit is a vacation package or a nice house or something else. Now the benefits change. When there's no manufactured obligation, then they have to entice you. Then it's the system that has to work to get you to engage in it, not the other way around. It's not you fighting to get the system to pay attention to your needs. It's the system fighting to get you to help it keep going. And that gives power back to we the people. And removes manufactured obligation from the conversation, while also removing lack and scarcity and struggle. It doesn't mean that people won't have problems, because they will. But there'll be human problems. Problems in relationships, fights with a partner, the usual things. It just won't be externally manufactured, created systemic problems that shouldn't exist. So, to wind this up, I just want you to question the stories you've been told about how society is meant to work, why you're afraid of having a society where people are not forced into work, why you're afraid of having a society where everybody is actually taken care of. The stories you've been told about people being lazy and people being awful. None of that stuff is true. Recognize how much pain the system creates, manufactures, and that when you take all of that out of the equation, people don't have to do many of the things that they're doing right now just to survive. We can change the conversation. We can change the conversation about society, about survival, about lack and scarcity, and turn it into a conversation about abundance and fulfillment and freedom. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. This is Della with Stillhouse Reflections, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye for now. Thanks for spending this time with me. May these reflections stay with you and keep opening new ways of seeing until we meet again at the Stillhouse.